3.5 minutes remaining.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To follow up on comments by my friend Mr. Hill from Arkansas, how fortunate the United States has been to have had Donald Trump as president when NATO was languishing, when there was no resolve that we could discern that would allow NATO to stand up to evil actions that were in the future to be taken by the leader there, Mr. Putin. Our allies in Europe did not seem to appreciate American President Trump questioning them about utilizing and becoming so dependent on Russian oil, and pointing out that, gee, we're spending American money to put troops in Europe and keep so many there to protect you when you're paying money to Russia and growing dependent on them so they could blackmail you for the future and extort concessions from you. And by the way, you, as a part of NATO, are expected to spend 2% on your own defense. You haven't been doing that, and you're going to start doing that. Thank goodness President Trump took those actions. It didn't make him popular with leaders in Europe, but right now, even those who didn't care for Mr. Trump, President Trump, they can surely see the value of the stands he took and the goading that he provided to get them to help prepare to stand up for their own defense. Otherwise, they would have been in position to start falling like dominoes. But because they started spending more of their money on defense and started trying to take actions that would not make them so reliant on Russian oil, they're in a better position than they would have been had we not had a president named Trump to stand up for what was right, stand up for a Republican form of government. And that's not Republican Party. It's an elected representative form of government. We call it a democracy. Many people do. It's really more of a democratic republic. We had the leader from the Hellenic Republic, Greece, gave a terrific speech here. And as I mentioned to him, I was glad he mentioned Pericles, because Pericles doesn't get enough credit for the inspiration that he provided, the logic that he provided to so many of our founders who wrote and spoke about his brilliance. That's something we're not getting a lot of in our schools. As education has now taken so much of its direction from the federal government and the Department of Education, we have schools that have increasingly been eliminating lessons in government and lessons in what it takes to sustain a republic. That's why Ben Franklin said, it's a republic, madam, if you can keep it. Because he knew, he was so well read, he knew traditionally you can't keep this phenomenal form of self-government that we made all the better, as the Prime Minister pointed out. He made it even better We've been so blessed here in America. People take it for granted, and they do not understand that you can't sustain this self-governance if you are not teaching people what it takes to sustain it. Now, we heard the majority leader. We know he would not knowingly, intentionally misrepresent the facts, but apparently not aware of the true facts, that we don't have a majority that supports a replacement theory. We do not have a majority that fears minorities becoming the majority. No, in fact, the majority of Republicans, the huge majority, have no fear of minorities becoming a majority. Our concern about the mass influx of people that have never been educated to what it takes to have a self-governing country is that you lose it. Now, I've pointed out for years, people say, oh, you must hate Hispanics because you want a secure southern border. It's exactly the opposite. I look at the Hispanic culture and I see three basic, and I know it's usually not good to generalize, but I see, generally speaking, three commonalities. You have most Hispanics have a faith in God, they have a devotion to their family, and they have a hard work ethic. Those are three things that made America the greatest nation in the history of the world. And it was so wonderful to hear the Prime Minister from Greece pointing these things out about how America, clearly they know around the world, they know you took it and you expanded the freedom, expanded, made it better than it ever was in ancient Greece where democracy began. Years ago, there were, I think, 4 or 5 members of Congress. We had stopped. We had made a trip to the Philippines. We went to see our American troops that were training Filipino troops to fight against radical Islam that was existing and had created so much chaos in some parts of the Philippine Islands. But we stopped on the way back to refuel at the Maldives Islands, and we were having lunch with some of their leaders. And I was talking to one of them. They're such gorgeous islands, beautiful white beaches, water crystal clear, just beautiful. But he was telling me, you know, we're a new democracy, and he said there's always rumors about a military coup taking power. And then he paused and he said, we never had a George Washington to set the proper example, so we're always worried about military coups. Well, they have had problems there. But here I was on the other side of the world, a little bitty island, and this leader knew more about our American history than so many, maybe even a majority of American students know now, about what a huge thing it was. It's depicted in one of the 8 big paintings in our rotunda of George Washington with a piece of paper in his hand. That was his resignation. He copied 13 that he sent to each governor, and this one was the original that he presented to the Continental Congress there in 1783. He had won the revolution as the head of the military. He could have been like Napoleon and been an emperor. He could have been czar, dictator, whatever, king, whatever. In fact, some wanted him to become, in essence, a king. And there he was. Congress had even given him authority to make all kinds of contracts and pay whatever he needed to pay to win the revolution. And here he was with all that power. Could have been, say, in essence, here's all the power back. I'm going home. Incredible. That was historic. And so many don't know. But leaders like the Prime Minister here this week, he knew. The Malvids, the little bitty islands, they knew. But when we have an administration like the current one, that basically, despite their saying they have secured the border is not secure. People are flooding in, and we don't fear having minorities be the majority. What some of us are concerned about is people flooding in, out of control, that have not been educated in what it takes to sustain a republic. Because I've heard this from other leaders in what we consider free countries around the world, and they're getting scared. They see what's happening in America and they don't you understand? When you lose your freedom in America, there will be no more freedom in the world. This week, Ronald Reagan has been quoted a number of times, that, and the Prime Minister mentioned as well, that freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. But for America to lose our freedom, which is what is in the process of happening when you take more and more right of the American people and give it to the federal government, and you give more and more right to the Department of Justice and Intelligence to spy on the American people, and you have an Attorney General who seizes more and more power and says, we're going to start spying on people that raise questions at school board meetings. You are jeopardizing self-government. And to even think about creating a disinformation board that truly was, it's been put on pause, a ministry of truth. The government gets to tell you what you can believe and not believe. Might as well just start calling us the Soviet Union. Good grief, I can't believe how close we have come to what George Orwell, using his pen name, described in 1984. As I've said before, it's appearing that the main thing he got wrong was a year. It wasn't 1984, it's now. But people have got to wake up. And for those, and I've heard it around everywhere I go, including the airport here, the airport in Texas, you've got to do something about the price of gasoline, price of diesel. It's making everything go up. I don't have money to fill my tank. Well, who caused that? The Biden administration. Who caused the shortage of formula? The Biden administration. And we already got a question from TV station back in Tyler, Channel 19. They always try to pick things apart. Well, I didn't vote for this new bill that's supposed to fix baby formula. Well, I can tell you, giving millions of dollars to the FDA or the Biden administration is not going to produce one drop of baby formula. And in fact, if they were going to be the ones to fix things, they would never have allowed us to get to this point. But what happened? Without any regard for what would happen, they went after the Abbott facility, and it turns out none of the formula was found to have been contaminated. Yet they created this shortage, and now this administration thinks the solution is more government, more money to the government. If we could just get more money, more people employed in the government, we can fix anything. No, that's why we have a shortage, because government is not the answer. Government is not the answer to getting cheaper gasoline prices and diesel prices and stopping inflation. Government right now has been creating inflation. It's time to allow the incredible economy that wants to grow and wants to be a pie that is not a zero pie where everybody just gets smaller shares. No, it grows. We get a bigger pie. And nobody explains the economy and what can help fix things in this body better than my friend from Arizona, Mr. Schweikert. And at this time, Mr. Speaker, I would like to yield back the time so it may be assumed by the gentleman from Arizona.
Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 4th, 2021, the gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Schweikert, is recognized for the